Welcome to yet another interesting masterclass on foundations of programming using Python. There are people joining, so we'll just wait for another 2 minutes and then we'll begin the session. We'll wait for another 2 minutes for the rest of the participants to join. Hello again. Hello everyone. Welcome you all to this masterclass. Today we are going to discuss on foundations of programming, see some interesting things with Python. I welcome you all to this webinar on full stack development, Python, foundations of programming. I also welcome all the people who are joining on YouTube. Welcome all. We are going to start the session now. I can see there's a lot of good morning, bright mornings, happy faces. Good morning all and welcome all. So let me start the session. Before I start the session, I just want to understand few things from all the people who are joining here. To understand, to start the session, I just need to understand what is your background, like what are your education details, like are you coming from a coding background, are you coming from computer science, are you coming from electronics and electrical background. I just want to understand few things before we get into details of the session. So I'll just quickly launch some polls on that, so you can just answer all those questions in the polls. And for the people who are joining us on YouTube, please mention it in the chat. Make use of the chat and please mention everything in the chat. So quickly, let me launch the first poll of the session. Here is our first poll. So you have some questions there. So take some time, quickly go through the questions and answer the poll. And for the people who are joining via YouTube, make use of your chat. So the first question, we want to understand if you're coming from BTech, MTech, MEB, MCA, BSc, MSc, or others. So please make sure you're picking up the correct option. And from the YouTube people, please make use of the chat. Just want to understand year of graduation and also want to understand what is your branch of graduation. We'll wait for another minute. So for those of you joined just now, welcome to the master session. We are just going to begin the session, but before we begin the session, we want to understand your educational details that will help us to more focus and streamline the masterclass. So we have launched a poll. Please make sure you go through the questions and select the appropriate option. And for those of you joining on YouTube, make sure you can type your answers in the chat. Yeah, if you don't find your stream, you have others, right? So you can always pick that. All right. I can see people are still joining, and then people are still taking some time to go through the poll details. We'll wait for some more time. Great. For those of you who joined from YouTube, please take some time and then make sure you're using the chat and post your answers in the chat for the questions given in the poll. If you have any difficulty reading the poll, please let us know. All right. Thank you so much. I think it's time for us to close the poll. Let's end the poll. Thank you for your time. Good insights that, we can get that, what is your background and stuff. All right. Great. All right. Now that we have collected, we know that what kind of background you're coming from. It's interesting for us to know that you are coming from a variety of background. And I think this masterclass, which is focusing on the foundations of programming, Python, will help you all to get some kind of, good takeaways from this session. So before I start, let me share a Collab Notebook with you all. So please look at the chat. So I'm going to share something, a Collab Notebook. All right, so here is the Collab Notebook, which you all can see on your screen. I will also share the link in a minute in the chat. But for now, I hope you are all able to see something on the screen. If you are not viewing the Collab Notebook, please let us know. Yes. So just in a minute, I'm sharing the link here. So I'm just sharing the link here. There you go. So you all can also open this Collab Notebook along with me, and then you can also see if you have any difficulty viewing it on screen. You also can view it, but then you cannot work along with me because this is saved on my system. So if you want to save, make sure that you're opening on your Google account and then you can type in things, right? All right. So this is the Collab Notebook, and we are using this Collab Notebook throughout for today's session. So the first thing you want to know, you might have heard about Python a lot these days, right? Why do you think Python is so popular these days? You can use your chat. Why do you think Python is so popular? You can use your chat to type in. You will not have permission to access, but then you can save it. I can share the notebook again with you all if you don't have the permissions to access it, but you have to save it with your Gmail ID. All right. Okay. Yes, I can see there's a lot of answers that has been poured in the chat. It is very easy. It is easy to learn. It is easy to learn for the beginners. It's very simple. It's easy to understand. Yes, for many reasons, Python is the uh, easiest learned language. The reason being, Python is very popular because of its ease on syntax. That way, it will help you to understand, and it is recommended that most of the universities these days here in India and internationally are recommending Python as the first programming language because of its ease to learn, ease in syntax. The way you write, the way you speak in English is the way you write code because Python is a high level language, right? And Python, not only that, Python will help you to understand things in a different way. Python never claims itself as a kind of, I'm an object oriented language or a functional language or a procedural oriented language, but Python can handle everything. And because of the community, Python has a huge community support and a huge community where people are helping each other because of the large community setup, because of the large community that Python has. Python is one of the go-to language that most people are comfortable these days using. And not only that, but not only that, Python actually is very robustic in the way because it has a huge library base, which means you can use some libraries and you can use it with kind of any domain you look at. So in terms of, technology, in terms of bio, medicine, you name it, you have some sort of huge library support which you can take up and you can use it, right? Yeah. For those of you who missed the Collab Notebook link, I am sharing it once again here. Don't worry, you cannot edit the Collab Notebook, but you can look into the Collab Notebook. If you want to edit it, you have to save it through your Gmail account. All right, great. So this is the Collab Notebook which I've shared. Don't worry if this is your first session. Welcome, because this is something which we want you all to understand how simple Python is, and then, to work on with Python, right? So we were discussing about, how Python is simple, and, we were just discussing about why Python is popular these days, right? Got it. Now, the first thing we have to do is you have to make sure that, okay, I will tell you how to work on this Collab notebook in a while, but please focus on the screen what I'm trying to share for some time, and then I'll give you a proper way. I'll tell you how to save this for those of you who are unable to access this particular file. All right. Okay. So now before I start, you want to know something, right? What is the version of Python we are using? What is the latest thing, or what is that is being there on the Collab notebook, right? So this is a Collab notebook. Basically, this is nothing but it's a kind of a Jupyter notebook that has been hosted on Google Cloud, right? So the advantages of using the Collab notebook is, like, I've shared the screen with you all, I work on it and I can share the screen with you all. That's one of the biggest advantage of using Collab notebook. And the moment you run your code, you can see the output. So this the other advantage of using Collab notebook. And many other plugins are there which is already installed on the Collab notebook, because this is a cloud based thing, so you don't need to pre-install anything and then work on it. So that's the other advantage of using it. So now let me open and show you how to clearly understand to get the version of the Python. So here in the Collab notebook, for those of you who are not familiar with what Jupyter notebook and Collab notebook is, in Collab notebook, you have things like this: a code, a cell for the code and a cell for the text. So here in the cell for the text, you can type in a rich text like, hey, this is my first master session for Python, and you can just save this. So this is something which you can write very clearly. So Collab notebook will allow you a kind of, both rich text, and the cell here is for the code, where you can go through and then, you can type something and then you can understand what it is doing. So anything, if you don't need, you can always go here, and there are few things which you can see here, right? So you can move the cell up and down depending upon what you want to go, and then you can comment, you can edit, you can make a copy of it, even you can delete the cell if you don't want, right? So now let's go and check then on the fly, you can also go and if you want a test to be included or you want a code to be included, you can also go with that particular block of cells. So now I am telling how to check, version checking of Python. Version of Python. So I am trying to check the version of Python. So now here in the cell, I will see how I will check the version of Python. So tilde. We are all working on Python 3. But now in Python 3, what is the version which Collab has is something which I'm going to see now. So Python 3 -- version, and then I will run this. You can, for the first time, since we are running this for the first time, it takes some time, but later on it will be fast. That's something you have to keep in mind when you're working with Collab notebook. And the other important thing you have to keep in mind when you're working with Collab notebook is that you should have stable internet, and you should have a very good internet connectivity when you're working with Collab notebook. So now you can see that the version here, the Collab version which I have is Python 3.8.10. So this is how we get our first version of Python, right? All right. So now we know how to get the version of Python. Now let's discuss more about how do you feel that, Python is like easy. Python is more, it's like because it's high level language, the way we speak is the way we type. So now let's look at this with one simple example, like why Python is very popular through a very simple example. So I'll give you all one problem statement. Think about it, and then along with you all, I will be typing the solution here. So if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat. and then we will discuss. You don't have access to unmute yourself, but you have access to the chat. And even the YouTube viewers, if you are viewing this and you want to have any question in between, please make use of the chat, right? So there's one interesting problem which I want all of us to work on, think on, and then, you all work along with me. The interesting problem statement which I have is, all of us would have played this in our childhood, right? There is this game called Fizzbuzz. How many of you heard about this game called Fizzbuzz? You can raise your hands. You can always raise your hands. How many of you heard about this game called Fizzbuzz? Yeah, great. So Fizzbuzz is a game where kids will be sitting along and kids will be playing it, especially in first, second, third standard, because when people want them to make sure that they know what the multiples of 3, multiples of 5, they learn this through a game, and this is one of the game. So I'll just read out and then I will type in the Fizzbuzz also here. So I'll also put it in the chat, the problem statement. So it will be helpful for you all. So I will just read out what the Fizzbuzz and how the Fizzbuzz problem statement look like. So Fizzbuzz is a game, as I said, it's very popular. It has, and then it's very popular because these days, that's one of the question most of the interviews are asking people whenever they want to hire someone. So I'll tell you what this is. So let's say you have numbers from 1 to 100, right? 1 to 100. You want to print numbers from 1 to 100. But it's not that I don't want numbers from 1 to 100. So if a number is divisible by 3, let's say, it should print Fizz. If a number is divisible by 5, instead of the number, you should print Buzz. If a number is divisible by both 3 and 5, instead of the number, you should print Fizzbuzz, right? And for all the others, you have to go and print the number itself, right? I hope the question is clear. I'm putting it in the chat as well. So let's say I want to print the numbers from 1 to 100, but instead, if the number is divisible by 3, instead of the number, I want Fizz. If the number is divisible by 5, instead of the number, I want Buzz. If the number is divisible by both 3 and 5, instead of the number, I want Fizzbuzz. And for all the other numbers, the number should be there. Like, for example, if you are, okay, let me type in here, let's say Fizzbuzz. So the output should be I want all the numbers from 1 to 100, but the output should be something like this: 1, 2, instead of 3, because 3, it's divisible, the number 3 is divisible by 3, right? So instead of 3, I want this. And in 4, instead of 5, because all the numbers that are divisible by 5 is Buzz. Instead of 6 is Fizz or Buzz? Fizz. Yep. 7, 8, 9. Multiple of 3, right? Fizz. 10. Buzz. 11. Fizz. 13. 14. And for 15, since it is multiple of 3 and 5, it should be Fizzbuzz. This is how the output I want. All right. Is the question clear for everyone? Great. So I'll take a pause for 2 minutes. Think about it. Think this solution How do you approach a solution for this? And let me know. The question is, I want numbers from 1 to 100 in a different way. How is that? For the numbers that are multiples of 3, instead of the number, I should have this. And for all the numbers that are multiples of 5, instead of the number, I want bus. And for all the multiples of 3 and 5, instead of the number, I want this bus. So on, this should repeat till 100, right? Great. So I will give everyone 2 minutes to think about this problem statement. Please think for 2 minutes, and then I'll ask you questions on this. So just think 2 minutes before you answer the question. So just think about how to do this the next 2 minutes. I hope people who are joining online YouTube, you have access to the chat. You can always put your solutions or your discussions or your queries in the chat. So I'll give 2 minutes for you all to think. One more minute to go. We are waiting for people to come up with ideas like how to approach this problem called FizzBuzz. And for those of you, you're coming for the first time, please understand, I'm giving you some time. So the rules for the FizzBuzz is already there on the screen. You can see the output should be something like this. For the numbers that are divisible by 3, instead of the number, I want fizz. And for the numbers that are divisible by 5, instead of the number, we want bus. And for the numbers that are divisible by 3 and 5, that 15, I want instead of the number, fizz bus. Okay? And for all the numbers, you have to print the number itself. So here you can see the output. 1, 2, fizz, 4, buzz, fizz, and so on. All right. Okay. Now let's discuss about this problem. I think the 2 minutes is done. So now back. How actually do you think you want to approach this problem? Okay. Somebody is typing in the chat. I can see people typing in the chat some of their codes in the chat. Yes. Yeah. I can see people typing in the chat. Let me pick one of the code from the chat and let me also type it here for all of you who, like, I can see many people putting up in the chat like Chandrasekhar, Indra, Manisha. So let me pick one of their solution which they've put it in the chat, and let's look and see how that solution is. Let's see. For it's very simple kind. For I in range 1 to 101 is what even Shravani is also typing for. So for I in range, I'm just picking up the one which already I'm seeing it on my screen, as most of you has given. If that parenthesis you use like this for the if is not very Pythonic, because in Python, you don't focus like, if, while and all, you don't focus on the parenthesis. It's not very Pythonic, so you can just eliminate the parenthesis there. It's not recommended as well. So for I modulus of 3 equal to 0, I'm just trying to get one of the solution here. All right, then what is that I want to go with? I want to print this, isn't it? Right? Okay. Now, next, what else? Yeah, I'm just looking at the chat and then I'm trying to go with the solution from one of our friend. I think it was Manisha who was trying to share something. So I'm just trying to get her code here. Then elif I modulo 5 equal to 0. So what is that you have to do if it is equal to 0? Print bus. Okay. Next. Else if it is, else if I is divisible by 3 and I'm just talking to you as I am typing this. So it's as simple as the English language, right? Print this bus. And for all the others, what is that we thought of printing? For all the others, we want to go with else. Else. Print the number itself, right? Okay. This is what is the code I've got from Manisha. So I'm just using her code here. So now let's look the correctness of the code. Let's run this and see. All right, here you go. So 1, 2, 3, instead of 3, we have fizz, 4, 5, instead of 5, buzz, 6, fizz, and so on. But look at for 15 what we have. For 15, 15 is both divisible by 3 and 5. So for numbers that are divisible by both 3 and 5, what should be there instead of the number? It should be fizz buzz, right? But it is not that. So here our code, though syntactically this whole thing is correct, we don't have any issues with syntax, but here we have a logical error, a very classic logical error. The error is that for the number 15, instead of 15 fizz buzz, we are getting fizz. Yes, think about it. What can be done? Why do you think that happened here? Instead of 15, we have to have fizz buzz. Okay. I can go with it. Somebody is asking me to use ampersand. Here you go. Ampersand, ampersand is not a kind of syntax in Python. Go back, and the best place to look at where and how we are having errors, or whenever you're in doubt, one place I want you all to go and look at is Python. Python.org. This is the place where you can go and look at whenever you have any questions, syntactical questions. This is the best way to learn something in Python. That is your Python documentation. So there are few things which are there, like ampersand. There are specific things why you have to use, where you have to use, right? Okay, let's dissect this code a little bit and see what is happening here. Let's say initially you have 1. So 1 is not divisible by 3, not divisible by 5, not divisible by, so you go and you are printing the number itself, which is great, and we got the output as 1. Now let's pick I value as 2, 2 modulo 3 not equal to 0. It will not enter into whatever the if, not even ellipse. Now whatever is there else part, so you're printing 2 here. 3, I is 3 now, 3 modulus 3 0. This condition is satisfied. So now we are just entering into the condition, and then instead of the number, we are having fis. We are printing fis, right? Now 4, and for 5, 5 modulo 5 is 0. So we are entering into this particular condition, and then we are printing bus, right? For 6, of course, the first condition itself is satisfied, so we have this here. For 10, again, 5 condition is satisfied, we have. Now look at 15. I value when it has 15, 15 modulo 3 is 0. Immediately we are having 15. Instead of 15, fizz is taken care, because 15 modulo 3 is satisfied, and instead of fizz bus, 15 modulo 3 is satisfied. So instead of the number, we are printing fizz here. So in order to tackle this, what is that you have to do? First, check the divisibility of 3 and 5. So if you check the divisibility of 3 and 5, what happens? If this is not satisfying, then you check for the divisibility of 3 and divisibility of 5. So by just checking the divisibility in a different way, this problem is addressed. So this is a very classic example where you have to think a little logically and say, because 15 is divisible by 3, the moment you say 15 modulo 3, it will not go for the next line. It will go and have, instead of 15, as fis. Okay, so let's go and then rewrite the same code and see how we can do it. So I am just going, and now I'm just typing and then rewriting this code. All right, I'll rewrite this code in a little classic way. Just look at the code, what I am trying to do. I said I'm using this limit. I want everyone to just focus on the screen and look at what I'm typing, and please try to sync it up. I hope my screen, my cells, and everything is visible. If anything, please have it in the chat. If you have any difficulty, please put it across in the chat. People who are joining in via YouTube, if you have any issues, please put it up in the chat. Okay, let me come back to that questions. I am just trying to interchange whatever we've just discussed, and I'm trying to write code in the similar fashion and see, right? So what is that I want to print? I want to print this bus. All right. And rest everything, you know, what is that we want to do it, right? So else if that is not there, what is the next thing you are going to check? Else if it is divisible by 3, what is that we want to go? We want to go with this. Then else if you want to go with 5, if it is divisible by 5, then we are saying print bus. Otherwise, for all the other numbers, we are going to print the number itself, which is n, but I want it in a different way. So I just want to have some kind of with a space. Here it is. Here you go. Just running the code. You can just look at how it is printing. Have a look at the code here. I want to just separate it. Give me a minute. Yeah. So you can see how it is printing. Yeah. Limit plus 1, because limit is not included. We want to have 1 to 100. So limit is not included here. So 98 and 99 is what you see. But in the question we want to have is 1 to 100, right? So remember, for range, it is always limit plus 1. So now you can also see in the output for 100. Yes, this is one way of dealing whatever the logical error we have seen for the fizz 15 instead of fizz. Now you can see it is fizz bus for the 15 and so on, right? Everyone, I think this is something which you can all see, and then you can see the difference, you know, just whatever we tried to check the divisibility of 3 and 5. So 3 and 5, I can change this very much to divisibility of 15. It will still stand the same. So instead of 3 and 5, I can say divisibility of 15. So this is something which you have learned in your schooling, the divisibility rule. So you can please go back and then understand about this. So it's as simple as that. Divisibility of 3 and 5, I'm making it as divisibility of 15. I'll just leave the screen like this for a minute. Please sync up and please again brace yourself. I'm going to write this code in a different way, which will again tell you how simple Python is and how you can break things in Python, right? I'll show a different way of writing the same code in a different way. All right. I hope this is all okay. Now let me go back and write the same code in a different way. I want everyone again to focus on the screen and what is that I am doing. Please try to understand. If you have any questions, have it and put it in the chat in a while. Just trying to see what, just see what I'm trying to do. And then, you can understand what this is. I will definitely share the link once again in the chat. But first, please allow me to finish this. Yep. So, equal to 0. What is that I have to do? Def FizzBuzz is a function, right? The moment you see def, it's a function. So I'm writing a function. So this function is accepting an integer value n and it is returning a string. So if the number is divisible by 15, so if n modulus 15 equal to 0, what is that I am expecting? So return, what is that I have to return? FizzBuzz. It's a string, right? So I'm returning a string here. Yeah. Then what else? The same, whatever we just saw, right? So if it is divisible by 15, you return FizzBuzz. If it is divisible by 3, if it is divisible by 3, and also please mind the way I'm writing code. I'm actually giving spaces between before and after the binary operators. The binary operators here in my case, which we are using is modulus is a binary operator, equal to is a binary operator. So you can see that there's a space before and after because this is one of the best practice which industry is expecting everyone to follow because this will give a larger visibility of whenever you're writing code. It's easy to read code, right? If you're not giving the spaces, it is all like, it is not very clear and clarity, but the one which I write is very clear and clarity. So you have to be mindful of that as well. So this, now if m modulus of 5 equal to 0, sorry, what is that you are returning? Return bus, right? Okay. For all the others, what is that I have to return? For all the others, what is that we are returning? We are returning the number itself, which is n, right? Okay. Are you all with me? Okay. Now let's run this code and see. But before running this code, I just want to tell you there is a small error in this program. Try to figure out and tell me. It still works. Now, how to call this? It's a logical error again. There's no syntactical error. There's something which you all need to understand. Now, I wrote a function here called FizzBuzz, right? This is a function which I'm writing in Python. I have to call the function. Very good. So how will I call the function? The same again. For n in range 1 to limit +1. What is that we are trying to do here? We are calling that, right? But then what is that you want to go? You want to print something, right? So you want to call the FizzBuzz there, right? Yeah. So let me say print. I'm calling the function here FizzBuzz of the number. Okay. Now, where is this limit? Limit is something which we will define now. Limit is equal to 100. Okay. Now, what did we do in this particular cell that I'm running, FizzBuzz? We defined a function. We just defined a function called FizzBuzz, And the function will return fizzbuzz if the number is divisible by 15. It will return if the number is divisible by 3, it will return fizz. If it is divisible by 5, it will return buzz. So now let's test the correctness of that particular function. So what I'll do, I'll just call the function. So this is where I'm calling the function. So the name of the function is fizzbuzz. So let me call the function fizzbuzz with the name and give some value to it, right? So let me give a value like 3. Oh, sorry, 3. For 3, what is that we are expecting? For 3, what is that we are expecting? It should be fizz, correct. So let me run it and see. Yes, I've got fizz for 3. But if you see that it's on a single quote, which means it's a string, right? Now, let me again call the function fizzbuzz. But now this time I'm just passing one value here, just one value, 3, 4. Now let me run and see. For 4, it's 4, number itself. But look at the output from the previous cell where the number I gave as 3 and for this particular latest cell where the number I gave as 4. The output for number 3 is a string type and the output for number 4 which I gave is an integer type because I'm here giving the type. So it's something which you have to be a little careful because I'm telling that the syntax which you see here is modern way of writing functions. Modern way of writing functions in Python. So I'm telling that n is an integer type, n accepts integer values, and the return type of this fizzbuzz is string type. So when fizzbuzz is a strings type, that indicates with double quotes, but for my n, it's an integer type. So I have to tell it is a string type. How do? I am typecasting it using str of n so that the return type now becomes string. So that my return type is same everywhere. Now I don't have any issues with the return type. So fizzbuzz is a string. Now 4 is also a string. Is this clear, everyone? So here I'm passing just one value, but I want to have bunch of values, then I have to use a loop, right? So I'm using for and range. So I'm using for every number that I get, I'm calling this function fizzbuzz of n. So instead of print, if I just call the function, what do you think it happens? We can just make our hands dirty and see all the time, not an issue. You can't see the output because for every number, if you want to see the output, you can view the output on the console using print, right? So for that reason, just for one number, you can see the output without using print. But if you want to go with number other than just one number, you have to go with print. So that's the reason I'm saying print. I'm calling the function fizzbuzz of n. Okay. So if n is 1, fizzbuzz of 1 is called, and then you are printing whatever the output is. So when you're printing the output, you can see that the string and all is all taken care automatically. This is the power of Python. So from where did we start? This is where we started writing the code. We've got a logical error here. For 15, instead of fizzbuzz, we are just showing it as fizz. From there, we move to this logic. From here, we move to the logic using functions. So what is the advantage of using functions? What do you think the advantage of using functions? See, when I'm using functions, it is very clear. It is very clear for me that I can use this code in any other different way. Yes, reusability, of course. Readability is there. When somebody is reading your code, you know that the moment you say fizzbuzz, there is a function, you know what is the functionality and what is the output expected. And tomorrow, if somebody comes and asks me, As a fresher, when you're working in a company, if somebody your manager comes and asks you, I want FizzBuzz and Bus, if divisible by 7 also. Easy for you to rechange the same and then include. You have to make changes at 2 places and this function will still work fine. Okay? All right? Great. So you saw that whatever we all discussed before joining before starting the masterclass, I've just asked you, what do you think, why Python is so popular, right? So now everything I've showed you why Python is so popular, because of its ease, because the way you speak, the way you write code, because you can break things into functions. Of course, that is there in every language, not just in Python. So these are the foundations of programming. So what are the foundations of programming? Again, I want to re-emphasize, foundations of programming is nothing but the best practices, the best things which you have as a good foundation that will help you to write better code are foundations of programming. So what are those best practices that we just saw in this session? Can somebody just name it? The first one which we just saw is understanding and focusing on the logic, right? We started with a very bad way of writing code, but then we understood that there's a semantic error, there's an error logically, and we try to correct it. And then the next best thing what we did is we tried to find a better way of writing code using functions, dividing the problem into functions, and then we are trying to use it using functions. And now the foremost thing is understanding the underlying abstraction of a given problem statements. FizzBuzz is a game which is played across people around the world. But when you look at what is the underlying abstraction from this particular problem statement, FizzBuzz, how to handle divisibility of 3 and 5. So we've understood that there are certain things which we have to keep in mind before we proceed. So by trial and error method, we saw that there's an error when we are not addressing that. And we now went from there to a next step on how to handle that error. And we have understood that this is all about logic building, giving some proper names, naming convention, like, for the function I give FizzBuzz, it is easy for everyone to understand. FizzBuzz returns FizzBuzz, or the number, right? So this way, these are some of the basic foundations of programming, which across the industry is expecting people to follow. And these are some of the best practices. I showed you n modulus 5, n modulus 3, n modulus 15 equal to 0. There is a kind of style. If you see the style of me writing code, it's easy. It is clean, easy to read. It's not giving kind of, effort on my eyes, right? So all these spaces here are not syntax here, though, but then I'm using because it is easy for me to read, right? So these are some of the best practices and foundations that I want everyone to keep in mind whenever you're writing code. So if you start writing code this way, your life will be easy. So for whomever you are reporting to, your manager will be happy the moment they see this kind of code. These are all the best practices. And I want you all to follow all these best practices, because this gives a kind of, effectiveness of writing code. And the moment when you see also that, there's a lot of impression that gives you at the first time when you see this code. It's ease on eyes, right? Yeah. Any questions on this? Anything else? Okay, somebody was asking for writing code using list comprehension. So I'll do one thing. I'll just try to keeping in mind with the time constraint, I'll just try to show you one of the last code style of writing code. I'll just leave this code here with you all. I'll just open it for you to So I hope it is visible. Let me scroll down. Quickly, I'll just project one code and I want everyone to just understand that. I'll just leave this with you all so that you can just go through it and then all right. In a minute, I'm writing a function again here. This time the function name is FizzBuzz again, but the way I write code is a little different from what I was writing code earlier. So just give me a minute. Yeah, here you go. So you can see the code. I'll give a minute for you all to sync up, go through this code. And then I will quickly explain you all what this code doing. And meanwhile, I'll try to share this with everyone. I'm putting across in the chat the link. Once again. All right. What is ABS? We'll go with the list, sortings and all that comes under your intermediate Python. Now we are focusing on the foundations of programming with Python. So this code, which I'm projecting now on the screen, of course, you have a function there. Then there are certain things which you need to take care of. So I'll just quickly go through it. So I'm using a string here called FP. And then what I'm doing, if it is a divisible, I'm checking the divisibility of 3. If it is divisible by 3, what I'm doing, I'm just saying that FB plus equal to Fizz. That is as equivalent to as FB is equal to FB plus Fizz. So this hash you see here are the comments in Python. So for those of you who don't know what plus equal to is, that's a shorthand operator in Python. So that is equivalent to your FB is equal to FB plus Fizz, right? So instead of writing all this, which means I'm adding Fizz to FP and storing the same again in FP. So instead of doing all these things, there's a shorthand operator called plus equal to. So this is the shorthand operator which I'm using. So if it is divisible by 3, I'm saying Fizz. If divisible by 5, I'm saying Buzz. So what happens for a particular, somebody was asking about list comprehensions, right? So this particular code you see on is using list comprehensions here. So I'm checking if the length of FB is 0, which means if there is the string length is 0, there's nothing there, which means it's not divisible by 3, it is not divisible by 5, right? So if it is both not divisible by 3 or 5, then I'm saying please return the number itself. Otherwise, return FP. So here I'm using list comprehensions. This is list comprehension. List comprehension is something like, between this, you have it. So I'm saying for X in range 1,101, I'm calling the FizzBuzz of X. For each time you get X, you are checking whether that is a divisible of 5, 3 or 15 and returning that. And finally, I'm printing the FBS, that is stored in your FBS. So this is what it is, right? So quickly you can go through it and see from where we started, from where we came. These are all again comes under your foundations only. The foundations, please keep in mind with the naming conventions, the way you write code, before and after space, before and after each binary operator, you have to give space. Indentation is something which is very important. And then logically, you have to make sure that the code is working. And then you can also see that whenever there is a kind of output mismatch, like, initially we said it is int and then we try to return string, but then we try to return, and it's not error, but we didn't see any error, right? But the same thing, imagine if you are working on a large systems, this might become a huge mistake, right? So you have to make sure that what is that you are inputting and what is the output. Okay, great. Okay, I'll explain this code again. FB is a string, which I am declaring as an empty string here, FB equal to. So each time what I'm doing is, these are again your string operations. This code is kind of little tricky. Those of you are coming from a very kind of, you don't have any programming knowledge also, it doesn't matter. So this is kind of, double quote, single quote, double quote, and triple quotes are considered as strings in Python. It's again, they are data types. So now I'm saying just the double quotes, which means it's an empty string. So FB is a string now. So what I'm doing, so here you remember, right? This is all clear for you. If it is divisible by 15, I'm returning a string fizzbuzz, right? So here, instead of saying, I'm saying, I am having a string, an empty string. Now, if my n is divisible by 3, then I'm adding that fizz string to an existing string, empty string, right? So in Python, string operations can be done. So let's say I have name equal to Indira, right? And last name equal to right? Now, if I want to say print name plus last name, right? If you run it, what happens here? If you run it, I am getting Indira Talasila, the complete, I'm concatenating the string, right? So if I want to add the same with a space in between, you can say this as well. So there's a space here, right? Which means I'm able to add strings. So using the same concept, like, adding strings, I initially have an empty string and now I'm adding fizz to that string. So empty string plus fizz to that string will become again the string fizz, right? Yeah. And I'm just, whenever the number is divisible by 5, I'm adding to the existing string, I'm adding buzz to it. So instead of the number, you're calling buzz. And there is some string functions which we are using here. Let's say len is one function, len of name, if I give here, I will get what is the length of the name, Indira here. So similarly, if I have, let's say, address equal to a kind of an empty string here. And then I am saying print, I want to see what is the length of address. So you can see the last print, whatever I gave here on the 6th line, right? Print length of address, it's 0 here, right? Because I don't have anything, it's an empty string, address is an empty string. So similarly, using the same concept, I'm checking if my length of FB, which is the string which I've designed, is 0, which means I don't have anything in it, which means it's neither fizz, it's neither buzz, which means it's just the number. So I'm returning the number itself. If it is divisible by 3, let's say number, then what happens? FB will be updated to fizz. If the number is divisible by 5, the FB will be updated to buzz. So now I'm checking whether there is length that is existing, which means whether fizz or buzz is existing in FB. If FB is empty, I'm just returning the number. If FB is not empty, what I'm doing, I'm returning FB itself. So for else all the others, I'm returning FB. Clear with this logic? Yes? Great. Now using list comprehension, what is that I am doing here? For each x in range 1, 101, I am calling this function fizzbuzz, and then I'm checking what is x. Let's say if x is 1, my n value is now 1. So what happens here? 1 modulo 3 equal to 0 is false. You're not going to fizz. You're not going to buzz. Now you're checking for the length of FB. Length of FB is 0 because nothing has been updated, right? So you're returning n, which is 1. So the x value 1, you're returning 1. Now for x value 2, again, nothing is satisfied, you're returning 2. For x value 3, you're calling fizzbuzz of n, which is 3. 3 modulus 3 is 0. So now you are getting inside, which means you are now in line 4. So now FB is equal to FB plus fizz, right? So now you check the length of FB. It is not 0. So you are returning FB here. What is FB? Fizz. You are returning fizz. Is this clear? Yeah. Now what happens if n is 15? For 15 modulo 3 equal to 0. FB is equal to fizz, right? Yeah, again, you're checking if n is equal, n modulus 5 equal to 0. You're getting buzz. So you're adding fizz and buzz again together. Now you're checking for length of FB. It's not 0. So you're returning FB, which is fizz buzz. I hope this is clear. Very good. So this is what I have for today's session. But before I go and take the other quick questions from you all, I just want to showcase one of the full stack. This is something which we are all talking about, that is Python. I also want to showcase you what you can do with Python and how Python can be, why Python is again popular, like, full stack development is going on. So let me also showcase you that. So I will just, I'll just share one of the interesting project that is being done in full stack. So I'm just trying to share the screen. So just waiting for the screen share. So you all can see something on the screen, right? Right? So that's, yeah, it's a high level language. So I know that you're all able to see something on the screen. Yeah, that's one of the project which is being done as part of our full stack development program by one of the student who is aspiring for the first job, the first career, to start the first career in IT industry. So if you look at that particular project, when you see, it's a project which actually is done on full stack, which is like front end, back end, and there is something which there's between kind of, a database, which there is also database communications, right? So here you can see that in the project, this project is designed using a framework called Django. So Django is one of the framework which is helping us to create beautiful web applications. So all that which we discuss now, Python is your programming language which you are using to create a kind of application. Python is the language and Django is the framework, right? So you create using this Django framework, the one which you see here, this particular project called Auditor is being designed. So when you look at this Auditor, this you can see kind of some features here like home, features, login, and you just scroll down. If you scroll down a little, you can see what is this project all about. So this is a project which was designed by one of our FSD students, which will give a kind of clear understanding of transactions, right? Yeah, so clear transactions. So this was done on Django framework using HTML, CSS, Bootstrap as front-end integrations, right? So here you can see this is the complete, scroll down a little and you can see this is the complete home page. And now if you just go and log in, so if you just go up and then log in, you can just log in. I'm just logging in using admin username and password. So here you can see kind of transaction history here. So this particular application is designed to have a watch on our transactions list, on the products, transactions, kind of, as a merchant, if I want to go for a small scale business, if somebody want to have a kind of, auditing on what is the products they have and how are the transactions, what is the amount, when did it happen, all that will be done at one place. So this is the one you can see on the right hand side. On the left hand side, you can see a kind of, the recent one which you're using on this on the screen you're viewing is the dashboard. Then if you click on the transactions, you can see the complete transactions. And if you click on the products, you can see what kind of products you have. You can also include and then you can also add on products here. And if you click on the customers, you can see how many customers, who are the customers are, and from which area the customers are. And filters is again an interesting feature which this particular project has got, where you can try to customize and use some filters where you want to say that, I want to filter out only people containing customer name A, pin code 5, like that. Okay. And if you look at the left hand side, there are also reports. So if you click on the reports, you can see a beautiful reports that is being generated. This particular thing which you are viewing currently is a volume report, which talks about the volumes of shoes, earphones, jeans, whatever the products you have, right? So that whole product list is there in your volume report. If you want to look at the customer volume report, you can also click on the customer volume report and you can get who all was purchasing what all and who is having the major share, right? You can also get the complete report on the left hand side. So this will give you a complete details about which customer got something from this and what is the quantity of products that they bought. And this is a kind of a useful application for people who are running small business online. And this can also be scaled because this has been done on Django framework with the help of HTML, CSS. So if you see there for from date and to date, if you see there, you can also filter out from the date. This is again the feature of your HTML, which we are using it, like a date attribute, right? So using the date attributes, you can say, you can select the date and the year and rest everything is taken care, right? So this is one of the FSD full stack development that what is being done using Python, Django, HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, and of course, database MySQL, right? So this is an end-to-end what I wanted to show. Now we'll go for questions. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be taking it. Yes, full stack development is nothing but, I'm sure, it is like integrating both the front end, back end, the server side, the client side, right? So Django is one of the application which can be used as a server side thing. So you just need to run it. I can just show you the back end of this as well, the server side as well. So yeah, so you can see that this is how it's being done. There's a request, response, this everything is like, it's an MVV architecture. So you can see, how everything is written here. You are trying to create let's say, for example, if you're as a first time user, you are registering, your password is, you should not show your password, right? So there's a process where we are also hashing the password. So that whole thing, you can see it, yes, on the DBSQL. If I click on, you can see clearly there is a password which has been generated, but the passwords are all hashed. You can't see the passwords, right? And you can also see various APIs have been used to create this project, like the Google APIs, where we are creating charts. So the Google API charts are also integrated, and then we are trying to use those REST APIs in our project. So this is a beautiful startup project, and it can also scale up. So this is a complete project example which I want to showcase as a full stack development project using the front end. Of course, Python is one of the language which we use to communicate. MySQL and Django framework we use, along with Bootstrap, which is like HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap. Of course, JavaScript also, a bit where you want to hover something, you want to add little more beautifications and stuff, we use JavaScript also. All right. So this is what I wanted to showcase in this particular masterclass, foundations of programming, and also helping you to understand what is full stack development and why Python should be considered as one of your full stack development with Python. Why is that in huge demand? Because it is easy to build, to learn Python as a language, it is easy. And Django is again as easy thing which you can do it. And using Django, you can also scale things up. And it's easy to build up. So I think industry is slowly also looking at and moving into full stack development. Python, Django, Flask. If you know to work on one technology, I don't think so it'll be difficult for you to go with the other technologies, right? All right. So that's all what I have. I'll just go back and show my Django screen again, the project screen. So if you have any questions, please let me know. No, it is not essential for you to have strong foundations of HTML and CSS. I have a question here saying that is it important to have a strong foundations? HTML, CSS, definitely you need to have an understanding. Don't worry, in our full stack development, it's a kind of, you need to know what HTML is, and then you need to know how to beautify your web application using CSS. Bootstrap will help you to give little more responsive. So you have some templates which you can use to create applications. So all that you need to know is you need to have the current attitude to learn a particular thing, and HTML, CSS is very simple. So you don't need to worry about it. We are using Python, I said, right? Python. We are using Python. We wrote this in Python. Django as the server kind. Yeah, I can clearly show you here. Yes, you can see the whole thing that has been the views.py. If you see, whenever you have a kind of request, that all thing you can see it is written in Python. You're seeing it. I hope it is, you can see it on the screen. All right. Okay. Any other questions? Let's focus our questions on to Python and full stack development and anything that is related to the session that we have today. Of course, whatever the questions, I'm just scrolling and looking at. Indrasen is asking, can you share me the full syllabus of Python? Of course, we can share the full syllabus. Please visit our website, TalentSprint.com, and you can get the full syllabus there. Yeah, Django is one of the best. I think Prakash, I've answered what is the main thing of using Django, because Django is scalable, and of course, most of the companies these days are also working on Django, and I'm sure most of you have your Instagram accounts, right? Instagram is a classic example of Django, written on Django, part of it. Yeah. What is the use of Python? Just now I've told you what is the use of Python in full stack development. I've just showed you. I'm using this this whole project which has been auditor is done on Django. We have used Bootstrap. Of course, we have integrated the front end and the back end. Server side is like Django we used, and then Python we used. When you want to create things, you write code, right? So that code writing is all done in your Python, right? Yeah. Oh, all right. So next question. Okay, before I go for the questions, again, I just want to see and then give you some kind of polls, right? It's time for a poll again, quick poll. I've just showed you that this is a framework called Django. So what do you think about? So coming polls here. Here comes the first poll. I can stop sharing my screen so that you can see the polls. So the other poll which comes here, yes. Django is what? I kept on saying a lot many times, repeatedly, right? What is Django? What is Django? My God, somebody said Java framework. Whoever is that, I think you're sleeping. Please wake up. It's not Java web framework. We are discussing about something. Django is not a framework. Oh my God, whoever answered that, Django is, I was right from when I was sharing my screen about the project which we did using Django, I was saying Django is a framework. Thank you so much. So it's time for us to end the poll. We'll go for another quick, interesting poll question now. After seeing all that interesting questions of Django, let me go and give you a very simple and small poll question. Just see, I want to see if everybody is like, yeah, here comes the question 2. I've just showed you like, how to select the calendar, right? Yeah, that's a week, that's the calendar date, that thing, whole thing. So there's something called as week attribute. What is week? Week attribute. What do you think week attribute defines? What is it called as? This is again a simplest HTML question which I can ask. Great. For those of you who are asking, expecting what is the answer for the first question, for first poll question, Django is a high-level Python framework, not Java. And Django, of course, yes, it's a framework. It's a server-side framework. All right, it's time to end the poll. The second question also, week attribute defines week and year. All right, great. Any questions on that? We are using MySQL for the project which I have showcased. We can also go and use MongoDB as well. Not an issue. Okay. All right. Just time to take up some questions in the chat. I'm just going around and seeing if I have any questions in the chat. Yeah. No, we can't share the project code because that's somebody's property, right? They have put in effort in doing that. Oh, then, yeah, for those of you who can't answer the poll questions joining from the YouTube, I can see you have already posted your answers in the chat. Thank you so much for that. It's a high-level framework, Django is, and also week and year is the attributes. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. Any other questions before we wind it up? If you have no questions, then I have one more poll to take it up. Last question for the poll. So the last question which I want to ask you all is this on your screen. The question says, do you prefer hands-on learning as showcased in the masterclass? And for those of you who are joining online via YouTube, please make use of your chat. I want to minimize the questions targeting to today's master session and on the full stack development. If you have any questions regarding the full stack development and this, yeah. Very good question, Sai Priya. Just this is something which I really want to focus on. Full stack development is something which is going like, full stack developers are the first preferred ones to hire by somebody in the IT as freshers because you know how to handle complete end to end. And the package for somewhere, 6 to 15 lakhs is the package which as a fresher you can expect. That is something which a fresher can expect for a full stack developer package. All right, I'm ending the question 3 poll. There's one more poll. I just want to launch that. Yeah. Certificate about what, Bhaskar? Yes, Priya, you can go ahead. Sujita, you want another session? Yes, please. We will plan out and we will let you know. Sadhana, regarding the course and all, you can please visit our website and then you can register. And there is a customer relationship manager. Our customer relationship manager will give you a call and will discuss and give you more information on the course structure and the fees. All right. You're asking about the session participation certificate. Okay, that will get back to you. If there is one, you will definitely receive it via email. Yeah. All right. I know it's Python. Continuously, I'm asking about Python or Java for automating testing. Pavitra, if you're asking about testing, we don't have currently anything for testing, but then we have only full stack development and full stack development with Java and Python. All right. Okay. I'm just ending this question and then one more last question for the day. Here is one more poll. The last question, and people who are joining in YouTube, you can please ping your answers in the chat. How soon are you looking to upskill in stack development is something which we really want to understand, whether it is immediate, within 3 months or within 6 months. Yes, all my friends, if you are, it's time for you to go to the namaz. Asif, please log in, log off. Thank you so much for joining the session. I hope you enjoyed the session. We are ending this poll in a 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. Yes, thank you so much. So if you have any questions, please feel free to go through our website and reach out. You can always, go through our website and reach out to us. If you have any questions, you can put it across and all the questions will be answered. Thank you so much for everyone for joining the session. I hope you enjoyed the session and this master session is useful for you all. If you have any other things, please let us know. We can help you out. All the very best. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you all. Bye.